The glinting metal of alien scout ships appeared at the edge of the solar system without warning. Earth's deep space monitoring stations detected the vessels 3 days before official first contact was established. Humanity had long prepared for this moment, but the reality of it sent ripples of excitement and fear across the planet. Station Commander Joe noticed the anomaly first during his night shift at Europa Outpost. The objects moved with purpose, their trajectory too precise to be natural. "Get me confirmation," he ordered, voice steady despite his racing heart. "And someone wake up Director Park." Within hours, Earth's military and scientific communities mobilized. By the time Director Park entered the crisis room at Earth's Unified Intelligence Division headquarters in Seoul, 3 separate tracking systems had confirmed the presence of 7 vessels of unknown origin. Park brushed a hand through his silver-streaked hair, eyes fixed on the main display. At 62, he had spent 4 decades in intelligence work, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. "Time to arrival?" he asked. "At current speed, they'll reach Earth orbit in 72 hours, replied Officer Kim, his intelligence analyst. She stood ramrod straight beside him, her calm demeanor betraying none of the anxiety she felt. "They're slowing down," announced a technician. "They've detected our observation." Director Park nodded. "Of course they have. Let's assume their technology is centuries beyond ours." The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparations and speculations. World leaders gathered in emergency sessions. Military forces went on high alert. Citizens alternated between panic and celebration. Some fled to bunkers, others threw first contact parties. On the appointed day, the alien vessels positioned themselves in geosynchronous orbit, equally spaced around Earth. Their design defied human engineering principles, sleek, almost organic curves that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "They're hailing us," Officer Kim reported. "Multiple frequencies, simple mathematical sequences, standard first contact protocol." Director Park felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Respond according to protocol. And get me a direct link to the Security Council." The aliens identified themselves as representatives of the Galactic Consortium, a union of 7 advanced species that govern most of the known galaxy. They requested a diplomatic meeting on neutral ground, the lunar surface. 3 days later, Director Park stood among Earth's chosen representatives inside a hastily assembled dome on the moon. His official role was security advisor, but his real purpose was assessment. He watched as the airlocks cycled open. The aliens entered with grace that belied their strange forms. The lead diplomat, who called himself Ambassador Tan, appeared almost human, save for his golden skin and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. The others varied wildly. One resembled a tall insect, another looked like a floating collection of translucent sacs. "We greet Earth as friends," Ambassador Tan said, his voice melodious and perfect in unaccented English. "The Consortium brings peace, prosperity, and protection to all civilized worlds." Director Park noted how the alien's mouth moved slightly out of sync with his words. Some kind of translation technology. Very sophisticated. The meeting proceeded with practiced civility. The alien spoke of trade opportunities, cultural exchanges, and technological gifts. They expressed admiration for human art and music. They asked polite questions about Earth's governance structures. But something felt wrong. Director Park had interrogated enough prisoners and negotiated with enough hostile states to recognize the subtle signs of deception. The alien smiles never quite reached their eyes, or equivalent sensory organs. During a brief recess, he pulled Officer Kim aside. "What's your assessment?" Her face remained impassive, but her voice dropped to a whisper. "They're too perfect, sir. No cultural misunderstandings, no communication difficulties. It's like they've rehearsed this many times." "My thoughts exactly. When we return to Earth, I want every second of this recording analyzed and run their communications through the quantum decipher again." The diplomatic team returned to Earth hailed as heroes. News outlets broadcast images of the historic meeting nonstop. Political leaders spoke of a new era of galactic cooperation. Meanwhile, in the secure underground levels of the intelligence headquarters, Director Park and Officer Kim worked around the clock. The aliens had provided Earth with a communication array to facilitate ongoing dialogue. They claimed it was a simple device, but Kim's team discovered it contained advanced surveillance capabilities. Clever, Park murmured as Kim demonstrated how the device monitored all electronic communications within a 100-kilometer radius. But not clever enough. Instead of disabling the device, they fed it carefully curated information while conducting their real work on isolated systems. 3 days into their investigation, Officer Kim made a breakthrough. Working through the night, she uncovered patterns in the encrypted alien transmissions that the Consortium didn't know humans could intercept. "Director, you need to see this," she said, her voice tight with tension. Park leaned over her terminal, scanning the decrypted text. His expression grew grimmer with each line. "Sir, they've done this before," Officer Kim said, sliding a data tablet across the desk with her findings. "I've identified references to at least 12 other species. They engage diplomatically while gathering intelligence. Then once a species becomes complacent." She didn't need to finish the sentence. The data showed a clear pattern. The Consortium would establish friendly relations with a newly discovered intelligent species. They would share limited technology, encourage demilitarization, and integrate the species into their economic systems. Then, once the species had grown dependent and lowered their defenses, the Consortium would trigger a crisis, sometimes engineered, sometimes merely exploited, that allowed them to take control for the greater good. "They classify species," Kim explained, pointing to a recurring term in the transmissions: harmonious, disruptive, or uncertain. "We're currently classified as uncertain with disruptive tendencies." Park's mind raced through the implications. Have they made their assessment? Not yet. But based on the timeframes I've deciphered for other species, we have perhaps 6 months before they decide our fate. Director Park stared at the data, his jaw set. "Then we have 6 months to prepare." He picked up a secure phone and dialed a number few people knew existed. "This is Director Park. I need to speak with Admiral Sung immediately. Authorization code Delta 907. While politicians smiled for cameras alongside their new alien friends and citizens marveled at the limited technologies the Consortium had shared, Earth's military command quietly began preparations. In hidden facilities across the planet and throughout the solar system, humanity started getting ready for a war they hoped to avoid but refused to lose. The Consortium believed they were following a well-tested playbook. They had no idea that humans had read the ending and were busy writing their own. Admiral Lee stood motionless before the viewport of his orbital office, hands clasped behind his back. Earth rotated slowly beneath him, beautiful and vulnerable. The weight of what he had just learned from Director Park pressed down on his shoulders. The evidence was damning. The Galactic Consortium, those self-proclaimed benevolent visitors, had a history of conquest disguised as partnership. Officer Kim's intelligence report lay open on his desk, the culmination of 3 sleepless nights her team had spent decoding alien communications. "Computer, secure the room," Admiral Lee commanded. The windows darkened, and a soft hum indicated activation of counter-surveillance measures. "Connect me to General Han, Priority Alpha." Within an hour, 12 of Earth's most senior military and intelligence officials gathered virtually in the secure conference system. Admiral Lee wasted no time. "What you're about to see is classified beyond top secret," he began, sharing the intelligence Officer Kim had uncovered. "The Consortium has done this at least 12 times before." The data scrolled across their screens, translated communications, historical patterns, and predictive models. Species after species, all approached with friendship, all eventually subjugated or destroyed. "The pattern is clear," Admiral Lee explained, gesturing to the historical analysis displayed on their screens. "The Consortium engages diplomatically for months, sometimes years, building trust. Then, once a species relaxes its guard, they strike. either through direct military action or by engineering a crisis that allows them to step in as peacekeepers. The room fell silent as the implications settled. General Han, her face grave in the video feed from Mars Command, broke the silence. "Then we must prepare for the worst while hoping for the best," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I propose the Preemptive Defense Doctrine." "Explain," said the representative from the European Defense Force. General Han outlined her plan. "We maintain diplomatic relations. We smile. We cooperate. But behind the scenes, we prepare for war like never before. We use the technology they've shared against them. We build. We train. We get ready." Admiral Lee nodded. "The Consortium believes we're at least a century away from certain technological breakthroughs. We need to close that gap in months, not decades." "Impossible," said the African Union commander. "Not impossible," countered Dr. Song, head of the Global Science Directorate. "Difficult, yes, but we don't need to invent these technologies. Just reverse engineer what they've already given us." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, they were united. Earth would prepare in secret while maintaining the appearance of innocent cooperation. The next morning, Admiral Lee met with Officer Kim in a secure room deep beneath Seoul. "Your intelligence work may have saved our species," he told her. "I need you to continue monitoring their communications. We need to know their timeline, their vulnerabilities." Officer Kim nodded. "Sir, there's something else. I believe their technology has gaps, weaknesses we might exploit." "Explain." She brought up schematics of the communication device the Consortium had gifted Earth. "Their technology is advanced, but it's designed to be compatible with many different species. That creates standardization, which creates predictability." Admiral Lee smiled for the first time in days. "Find those weaknesses, officer. Our lives depend on it." The Preemptive Defense Doctrine went into effect immediately. Around the world, military forces began quiet preparations. Key personnel disappeared from public view, reassigned to classified projects. Industrial capacity shifted subtly toward military production. Beneath the surface of Mars, an abandoned mining complex transformed into a research facility where scientists worked to understand Consortium weapon systems. Inside the asteroid belt, automated factories constructed components for a fleet that officially didn't exist. On Europa, deep beneath the ice, engineers tested prototype drives based on Consortium navigation systems. General Han personally oversaw the training of elite forces in simulator pods that recreated alien ship layouts. Faster. She barked as a team practiced boarding actions. The Consortium evolved in lower gravity environments. Use that advantage. Meanwhile, Officer Kim's team expanded their surveillance of Consortium communications. They constructed a shadow network that mirrored the aliens' own, allowing them to intercept messages without detection. "They're getting suspicious," Kim reported during a weekly briefing. "They've noticed energy signatures from the Mars facility." Admiral Lee frowned. "Can we mask it?" "Already done," Dr. Song replied. "We've created false readings suggesting inefficient power generation, something they'd expect from our primitive technology." The Consortium representatives continued their diplomatic mission, unaware of what was happening beneath the surface. They provided carefully limited technological gifts and medical knowledge, always with strings attached. 3 months after first contact, Earth signed the first formal agreement with the Consortium, a treaty allowing limited Consortium presence on the Moon in exchange for assistance with Earth's climate issues. As the alien ambassadors smiled for cameras, Admiral Lee watched the broadcast from his hidden command center on Titan. "They'll use the lunar base to stage their containment fleet," he said quietly to General Han. She nodded. "And we'll be ready when they do." "Have Dr. Song's teams made progress with the shield technology?" "Better than expected. The prototypes are blocking 70% of Consortium energy weapons. We're integrating them into the Jupiter fleet now." What the Consortium didn't realize was that every gift they provided contained clues to their technological foundations. Every medical scanner revealed insights into their biology. Every educational program exposed elements of their strategy and thinking. Earth took these breadcrumbs and built a feast of understanding. The cultural gifts, given as gestures of goodwill, became the blueprint for humanity's greatest technological leap forward. 6 weeks later, Officer Kim made another breakthrough. She had identified a pattern in the Consortium's quantum communication that allowed her team to predict their encryption shifts. "We can read everything now," she told Admiral Lee. "Not just what they want us to see." That night, they intercepted the first direct evidence of the Consortium's true intentions, a resource assessment of Earth that classified humans as manageable opposition and suggested containment protocols might be necessary within the year. Admiral Lee immediately ordered the acceleration of all defense programs. "We may have less time than we thought," he told his commanders. Around the solar system, hidden production facilities worked at maximum capacity. Shipyards in the shadow of Saturn's rings assembled vessels that combined Earth ingenuity with reversed-engineered Consortium technology. Training facilities on Pluto pushed soldiers to master alien environments and weapons. The Consortium's surveillance satellites detected unusual energy signatures from some of these activities, but dismissed them as evidence of human industrial inefficiency, exactly as Earth's planners had hoped. 4 months after first contact, the first fleet of Earth's new defense force gathered in the shadow of Neptune, out of sight of Consortium observers. The ships were smaller than Consortium vessels, but incorporated innovations the aliens had never considered. They relied too heavily on their advanced technology, General Han explained during the fleet commander's briefing. "They've never needed tactical innovation. We'll use that against them." Admiral Lee toured the flagship, speaking with crew members who had trained day and night to master unfamiliar systems. Their determination filled him with pride and hope. As he returned to his command center, Officer Kim contacted him with urgent news. "Sir, we've intercepted new orders to their advance forces. They're accelerating their timeline." The Consortium couldn't have known that their supposedly secret deliberations were being monitored. They had no reason to suspect that humanity had broken their encryption or understood their intentions. They couldn't have been more wrong. While Earth's diplomats continued smiling and negotiating, the greatest military preparation in human history neared completion. The Consortium believed they were following their standard playbook against an unsuspecting species. Instead, they were walking into the most elaborate trap ever set. Officer Kim had not slept in 36 hours. Her eyes burned from staring at screens filled with alien text and symbols. Something had changed in the Consortium communications, a new urgency, a shift in encryption patterns. She knew it meant trouble. The small, windowless room deep beneath Seoul had become her second home over the past 6 months. Empty coffee cups and food containers littered her desk. The air smelled stale despite the ventilation system's constant hum. "Got you," she whispered as the final piece of the complex encryption fell into place. The message appeared on her screen, and her blood ran cold. She read it twice to be sure, then reached for the secure communication panel. "This is Officer Kim. I need to speak with Admiral Lee immediately. Authorization code Sigma 739. Within minutes, the Admiral's face appeared on her screen. Despite the early hour, he looked fully alert. "What have you found?" he asked without preamble. "Sir, they've made their decision." Kim sent the decrypted message to his terminal. "Earth has been classified as containment necessary. They're deploying their fleet for an orbital blockade. Timeline: 5 days from now." The Admiral's expression hardened. "They're moving faster than we anticipated." He fell silent for a moment, weighing options they had discussed many times before. "Send the alert to all command stations. I'm calling an emergency council meeting." 2 hours later, Earth's defense leaders gathered in a virtual conference. Some joined from underground bunkers, others from orbital stations or bases throughout the solar system. All wore the same grim expression. Admiral Lee shared Officer Kim's discovery without embellishment. The Consortium plans to establish a blockade around Earth under the pretense of protecting us from outside threats. Once in position, they'll demand we disarm and accept their direct governance. And if we refuse, asked the European Defense Minister, based on their patterns with other species, they'll disable our communications, then target key military and government installations from orbit. General Han spoke up from her command post on Mars. Are our preparations sufficient? Dr. Song, representing the Science Division, nodded confidently. We've completed installation of the disruptive field network. Our stealth fleet is at 92% readiness. The shield generators for major cities are operational. Admiral Lee surveyed the faces of Earth's defenders. 6 months of frantic preparation had brought them to this moment. They were as ready as they could be. Then we don't wait for them to act, he said firmly. Without hesitation, he gave the order. Activate Phoenix Protocol. Throughout the solar system, hidden human facilities powered up. On distant moons, inside hollowed-out asteroids, beneath planetary surfaces, lights flashed, systems engaged, and crews rushed to battle stations. The biggest military operation in human history had begun. Officer Kim watched from her station as status reports flooded in. Green indicators spread across her display as each element of their plan activated. Stealth fleet reporting ready, announced the communications officer. Disruptive field generators at full charge, added the systems coordinator. Admiral Lee stood tall, hands clasped behind his back. Deploy the field generators to their designated positions. Launch the stealth fleet. Begin evacuation of critical personnel from major cities. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity, while Earth's citizens went about their daily lives, unaware of the coming danger. The planet's defenders moved into position. The stealth ships, a marvel of human innovation combined with reverse-engineered alien technology, slipped through the solar system undetected. Each carried one of the disruptive field generators that Dr. Song's team had developed. The devices were humanity's greatest achievement, capable of interfering with the quantum communication systems the Consortium relied upon. From his command center on Luna Base, Admiral Lee tracked their progress. Status report, he ordered as the deadline approached. All generators in position, sir, reported the tactical officer. Field strength at optimal levels. Defensive fleet in position behind Mars. Civilian shelter systems on standby. Lee nodded. Now we wait. On the morning of the 6th day, exactly as Officer Kim had predicted, the Consortium fleet arrived. 17 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Jupiter's orbit. Their sleek, predatory forms dwarfed anything humans had built. In the diplomatic center in Geneva, Earth's representatives were meeting with Ambassador Tan. The alien's expression remained pleasant as he explained that a protective force was arriving to ensure Earth's safety from external threats. At that exact moment, Admiral Lee gave the signal. Activate the disruptive field. Throughout the solar system, the hidden generators powered up simultaneously. A wave of invisible energy spread across space, targeting the specific frequencies the Consortium used for their weapons and communication systems. Aboard the lead Consortium vessel, Admiral Venn was preparing to announce the blockade when his ship's systems began to fail. Weapons went offline. Communication channels filled with static. Navigation computers displayed nonsensical readings. What's happening? He demanded as his bridge crew scrambled to respond. Unknown energy field. Admiral, reported his science officer. It's interfering with our quantum systems. Impossible. These primitives don't have this technology. As the Consortium fleet drifted in confusion, Earth's response force emerged from hiding. Ships of human design, but incorporating Consortium technology, approached from multiple vectors. Commander Choi, leading Earth's first space combat fleet, positioned her flagship directly before the Consortium's lead vessel. Her heart pounded, but her voice remained steady as she opened a direct channel. Consortium fleet, this is Commander Choi of the Earth Defense Force. Her image appeared on the screens of every alien vessel. This is not how we expected this conversation to happen, but we've been preparing for it nonetheless. The face of Admiral Venn appeared on her screen, his golden eyes wide with shock. How is this possible? Your species was still confined to your own planet when we arrived. Commander Choi allowed herself a small smile. We learned from history, yours and ours. Humanity doesn't wait for war to come to us. Officer Kim, now stationed on Commander Choi's vessel as intelligence liaison, provided real-time analysis of the Consortium's attempts to counter the disruptive field. They're trying to adapt their systems, she reported, but it will take them hours to work around our interference. Commander Choi nodded. That's all the time we need. She addressed the alien admiral again. You came here expecting to find an easy target. Instead, you found a species that recognized your pattern of conquest disguised as protection. Every gift you provided gave us insight into your technology. Every cultural exchange revealed your tactics. The alien's composure cracked. This is a violation of Consortium law. We never agreed to your laws, Commander Choi replied calmly. You classified us as containment necessary without provocation. You planned to blockade our world and force our submission. Those actions have consequences. Throughout the solar system, Earth's defensive network fully activated. On the Moon, massive cannons swiveled toward the invaders. From Mars, a second fleet of human vessels emerged. From the asteroid belt, smaller attack craft swarmed like angry bees. The message was clear. Earth would not be conquered. In his command center, Admiral Lee watched the unfolding situation with grim satisfaction. The plan had worked better than expected. The Consortium fleet was effectively neutralized without a single shot being fired. Send the terms to their admiral, he ordered. Commander Choi transmitted Earth's demands: immediate withdrawal of all Consortium forces from the solar system, recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and a new diplomatic relationship based on genuine equality. For the first time in their long history of expansion, the Galactic Consortium faced a species that had anticipated their betrayal and prepared accordingly. The turning point had arrived, not just for Earth, but for the galaxy itself. Captain Toll stood rigid on the command deck of the Consortium flagship, Inevitable Victory. Around him, his crew worked frantically to restore their failing systems. Warning lights flashed across control panels. The disruptive field generated by the humans had crippled their most advanced technology. Reroute power to secondary systems, he ordered. Begin manual targeting protocols. He stared at the main view screen, which showed the human vessels maintaining perfect formation around his fleet. This was impossible, completely impossible. The intelligence reports had classified Earth as pre-interstellar, a species that had only recently developed basic space travel. Yet there they were, ships of obvious human design, but incorporating elements of Consortium technology. How had they developed this capability so quickly? And how had they anticipated the containment operation? Status report, he demanded. His second-in-command approached. Primary weapons remain offline. Communications limited to short range only. The disruptive field is blocking our quantum systems. And the humans. Their vessels show active shields and weapons. They appear to be using modified versions of our own technology. Captain Toll's golden eyes narrowed. How is this possible? He demanded, addressing Commander Choi's image on the flickering view screen. Your species was still burning fossil fuels a century ago. Before Commander Choi could respond, another human appeared beside her on the screen. An older male with a stern expression and admiral's insignia. I am Admiral Lee of Earth Command, he said. We've studied your history, Captain Toole. The Consortium has never encountered a species that prepared for war during peace. Today, you learn that humanity doesn't wait for threats to materialize. Captain Toole felt a chill run down his spine. They knew. Somehow, these primitives had discovered the Consortium's true intentions. They had decoded the classified directives and prepared accordingly. We come in peace, he tried, falling back on the standard diplomatic response. This fleet is merely a protective measure. Admiral Lee's expression hardened. "We intercepted your orders, Captain. Earth is classified as containment necessary. Your mission is to establish orbital control and force our surrender. Those are not peaceful actions." Captain Tull's mind raced. The situation was unprecedented. No species had ever detected a containment operation before it began. His training had never covered this scenario. "Your actions constitute aggression against the Consortium," he said, trying to regain control of the situation. "Stand down your vessels and deactivate these interference devices immediately." "We decline," Admiral Lee replied simply. "You entered our solar system with hostile intent. We are merely defending our sovereignty." Captain Toole turned to his tactical officer. "How long until we can adapt to their interference?" 2 hours minimum, sir. Their disruptive field uses our own quantum principles against us." 2 hours. Too long. They were vulnerable now in a way Consortium vessels had never been. Captain Toole made his decision. "All vessels, initiate contingency protocol Omega. Fall back to the outer system." The Consortium fleet began a controlled retreat toward Neptune, hoping to gain distance from the disruptive field generators. Captain Toole had no intention of actually leaving. Once they adapted their systems, they would return and crush this unexpected resistance. Admiral Lee watched the Consortium vessels retreat on his tactical display. Officer Kim stood beside him, analyzing their movements. "They're not leaving," she said. "Based on their formation and trajectory, they're regrouping near Neptune." Admiral Lee nodded. "As expected. General Han, is your fleet in position?" The general's image appeared on a side screen. "Yes, Admiral. Task Force Sabre is hidden in Neptune's rings. They don't see us." "Good. Let them think they're escaping our net. Once they begin their adaptation procedures, spring the trap." The Consortium fleet reached Neptune's orbit and took up position in a defensive formation. Captain Toole immediately ordered his engineers to begin modifying their systems to work around the human interference. "Time to completion?" he asked. 90 minutes, sir. We're making progress faster than expected." Captain Toole allowed himself a small smile. The humans had surprised them, yes, but the technological gap was still enormous. Once his fleet regained its full capabilities, the outcome would be inevitable. "Sir," call his sensor officer. "New contacts emerging from the planetary rings." Captain Toll spun around as the tactical display updated. Dozens of small human vessels were emerging from hiding, fast attack craft moving at incredible speeds. They had been waiting in ambush. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "All ships, defensive positions." But it was too late. The human attack craft swarmed around the larger Consortium vessels like insects, targeting specific systems with precise weapons fire. They weren't trying to destroy the ships. They were hitting communication arrays, sensor nodes, and engine controls. "They know our weaknesses," muttered his tactical officer in disbelief. "They know exactly where to hit us." Of course they did, realized Captain Toole. The gifts the Consortium had provided during diplomatic exchanges, they had been studied, taken apart, understood. The humans had learned the Consortium's technology from the inside out. "All vessels, return fire," he commanded. The Consortium ships managed to bring their secondary weapons online, firing energy beams at the human attackers. Some found their targets, destroying several Earth vessels in brilliant explosions. But for every human ship lost, 3 more seemed to appear. On his flagship, Admiral Lee watched the battle unfold with grim determination. The Consortium's technology was still superior in many ways, but Earth had the advantage of surprise and preparation. "The Helios is taking heavy damage," reported his tactical officer. "Order them to fall back," Lee replied. "Bring in the second wave." Officer Kim monitored the Consortium communications. Though still partially encrypted, she could detect increasing panic in their transmissions. "They're trying to call for reinforcements," she said, "but our disruptive field is blocking long-range signals." The battle continued for 47 minutes. Human vessels darted between the larger alien ships, striking with precision before retreating. The Consortium forces, unable to fully coordinate without their quantum communications, struggled to mount an effective defense. Captain Toole watched in horror as 3 of his capital ships went dark, their main systems completely disabled by concentrated human attacks. "We need to retreat," his second-in-command urged. "We cannot win this battle under these conditions." Pride warred with pragmatism in Captain Toole's mind. In 3 centuries of service, the Consortium had never retreated from a containment operation. It was unthinkable. But as he watched another of his vessels lose power, reality set in. They had severely underestimated this species. "All vessels," he ordered, his voice tight with suppressed rage. "Full retreat. Emergency jump on my mark." The remaining Consortium ships activated their faster-than-light drives, disappearing from the solar system one by one. Captain Toole's flagship was the last to leave, broadcasting a final message to Earth. "This is not over, humans. The Consortium does not forget." As the alien vessels vanished, cheers erupted throughout Earth's fleet. Victory celebrations began on ships and bases across the solar system. Humanity had faced its first interstellar threat and prevailed. But Admiral Lee did not join the celebrations. He knew this was only the beginning. "Send a message to all outposts," he ordered. "Maintain full alert status, and prepare a diplomatic team. The real battle is about to begin." Across Consortium space, news of the defeat spread quickly. No member species had ever successfully resisted containment. The carefully constructed narrative of Consortium invincibility began to crack. On a dozen worlds, subject species who had long chafed under Consortium rule took note. If humans could stand against the mighty Consortium, perhaps others could too. The political upheaval had begun. The vast circular chamber of the Consortium Council fell silent as the human representatives entered. The 7 high counselors sat on elevated platforms, looking down at the visitors with expressions ranging from curiosity to poorly concealed anger. Representatives from 24 member species filled the surrounding galleries, murmuring among themselves. Earth's delegation walked with measured steps to the center of the chamber. Admiral Lee led the way, dressed in a formal diplomatic uniform rather than his military attire. Behind him came Officer Kim, recently promoted to Chief Intelligence Advisor, and 3 other humans selected for their expertise in diplomacy, science, and military strategy. "The humans appear before this emergency session," announced the lead counselor, a tall being with iridescent skin. "We will hear their explanation for their unprovoked attack on our peacekeeping fleet." Admiral Lee's expression remained neutral. "We thank the Council for agreeing to this meeting. However, we must correct the record. The Consortium fleet entered our solar system with clearly documented hostile intent. Our actions were defensive, not aggressive." Angry shouts erupted from several council members. The lead counselor raised a hand for silence. "You have no proof of such intent," he stated firmly. Officer Kim stepped forward, activating a small device she carried. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing Consortium communications translated into the standard galactic language. "These are your own directives regarding Earth," she said calmly. "Classification, containment necessary, approved strategy, orbital blockade followed by forced compliance. Authorization, Council Special Directive 37A." Stunned silence fell across the chamber. The communications were authentic, internal Consortium orders never meant for outside eyes. "How did you access these?" demanded one counselor, his voice trembling with shock. "That is irrelevant," Admiral Lee replied. "What matters is that Earth was targeted for subjugation without provocation or just cause. We defended ourselves using the limited technological understanding we gained from studying your gifts." From the gallery, a representative of the Pellerin species, a race that had joined the Consortium only 50 years earlier, spoke up. "The humans speak truth. My world faced similar containment before being forced to join." Others joined in, representatives from a half-dozen worlds sharing similar stories. What had begun as an indictment of humanity was rapidly becoming an examination of the Consortium's methods. The lead counselor struggled to regain control of the session. "This is not the purpose of this meeting. We are here to address the human violation of galactic law." "We never agreed to your laws," Admiral Lee responded firmly. "We come before you not as supplicants, but as equals. Earth seeks peaceful relations with all spacefaring species, but we will not accept subjugation." He gestured to the holographic display, which now showed images of Earth's defensive capabilities. "We have demonstrated our resolve. We would prefer friendship to conflict, but make no mistake, we are prepared for either." Officer Kim studied the faces of the council members. Some showed fear, others calculation. A few, particularly representatives of the newer member species, looked thoughtful, even hopeful. "We don't seek dominance," Admiral Lee continued, addressing the entire chamber, "but we will not accept subjugation either. The Consortium's approach to galactic order is fundamentally flawed. Peace maintained through fear is no peace at all." A tall avian being rose from the gallery. "The humans speak wisdom. For too long, the Consortium has ruled through intimidation rather than cooperation. The Mithran Confederation stands with this assessment," added another representative. One by one, representatives from species that had been pulled into the Consortium through containment spoke up. Years of resentment surfaced, emboldened by humanity's unexpected defiance. The lead counselor's face darkened. "This is sedition. Guards, remove these disruptors." But when he looked to the security forces, they remained motionless, uncertain where their loyalties should lie in this unprecedented situation. Admiral Lee seized the moment. "We propose an alternative. A true alliance of worlds, built on mutual respect and genuine cooperation. Earth would be honored to help establish such a framework." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some counselors shouted for order, others engaged in intense debate with their neighbors. The lead counselor banged his ceremonial staff, trying desperately to restore control. Officer Kim leaned close to Admiral Lee. "This is working better than we anticipated," she whispered. Lee nodded slightly. "Pressure creates change. They've never been challenged like this." The emergency session extended into days of debate. Earth's delegation remained on the Consortium homeworld, meeting with representatives from dozens of species. Officer Kim's intelligence background proved invaluable as she helped identify which factions truly sought reform and which merely wanted to replace the current power structure with their own. By the end of the first week, a coalition had formed. 17 species, including 3 of the original Consortium founders, committed to fundamental reform. "They fear war with Earth," Admiral Lee observed during a private strategy session. "But more than that, they fear their own subject worlds rising up if they continue their old methods." "Fear is a poor foundation for lasting change," noted Officer Kim. "True, but it creates an opening. Our job is to help them build something better through that opening." On the 10th day, the Consortium Council reconvened. The chamber had been rearranged, with all representatives seated at the same level, a symbolic change that reflected the shifting power dynamics. "After extensive deliberation," announced the lead counselor, his voice subdued, "the Council has approved reformation of our governance structure. The Galactic Consortium will transition to the Interstellar Alliance, with representational governance and protections for sovereign rights of all member worlds." The transition wasn't simple or swift. Over the following months, centuries of entrenched power had to be redistributed. Earth's delegation remained involved throughout the process, with Officer Kim often working 20-hour days to help draft new governance protocols. Some Consortium hardliners resisted, of course. 2 attempted military coups were put down by a coalition that included Earth forces alongside ships from newly empowered former subject worlds. 6 months after the emergency session, Officer Kim stood on the observation deck of Earth's first official embassy ship, watching the stars as they approached Earth after a successful diplomatic mission. Admiral Lee joined her, looking more relaxed than she had seen him in over a year. "Did you imagine this outcome when you first decoded their communications?" he asked. She shook her head. "I was just trying to protect Earth. I never thought we'd end up redesigning galactic governance. Our greatest strength wasn't technology or military might, Lee said thoughtfully. It was our ability to prepare for threats while still hoping for peace, to defend ourselves without becoming the very thing we fought against. Officer Kim nodded, watching as the blue sphere of Earth came into view. Do you think it will last? This new alliance? If we remain vigilant, yes. Peace requires constant tending, like any living thing. Across the galaxy, a new doctrine spread among spacefaring civilizations. Peace through preparedness, not domination. Earth became known not just for its unexpected military capability, but for its balanced approach to power. Strong enough to defend itself, wise enough to seek cooperation rather than conquest. When new species achieved interstellar capability and made first contact with the Alliance, they were welcomed as equals and supported in their development, not assessed as potential threats to be contained. As for Officer Kim, she eventually became Earth's ambassador to the Alliance Council, where her keen understanding of both human and alien psychology helped guide the young organization through its formative years. The stars, once a source of threat and uncertainty for humanity, became highways of commerce and cultural exchange. And all because Earth had learned the most important lesson of galactic politics. Peace is not the absence of strength, but its most judicious application.